Hi, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Jahzara Bradley Effect Live. This is our episode 4. Excited to be here with you on another Thursday. The title for tonight's section is Contradictions, Aris, Idnetity, and Becoming What You Once Rejected. So tonight we're going to be talking about Aris Smith, one of my characters, who is in the standalone book Contradictions. She is also in the book series My Love Won't Last Forever, Chaotic Bliss, which is book 2 in that series. And so tonight we are not talking about love. I know, don't be disappointed. We spent a couple shows talking about love, but we're not going to be talking about love in the way that we did before. We're not even talking about marriage tonight. I know. Oh, I hope I'm not breaking your heart. We're not even talking about power. Tonight, we're probably going to have some conversations that may make some people uncomfortable because there's the saying, if the shoe fits. And so, in some of these instances, the shoe may fit. You might feel like Cinderella, and that slipper might feel a little tight. But tonight, we're going to be talking about who you become when life doesn't go as you planned. And we'll see that with Aris, who she becomes when life doesn't go exactly as she planned. And before we just go any further, and you can put your comments in the chat, I have a couple questions for you. You know, we love to interact around here, and I love to ask you all questions. And I love for you to comment and interact with me in the chat. Okay, so here's our question. One of them, anyways. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, this is not who I said I would be? So, have you ever evaluated yourself? Could be current, could be past in your life and said, man, this is not who I said I would be. Be honest. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Be honest with me. Have you ever become something you once judged? Oh, yeah. Told you guys we were going to have some of those conversations and it may get a little tight, but that's okay. We're here for each other. So let me know in the chat. Now, this is my book, Contradictions. Contradictions turns 23 years old this year in November, my first novel that I ever wrote. I rewrote it again in 2024. Oh, okay. So let me look at the chat. So Jen said, oh, nobody wants to. Is that nobody wants to admit that they've become something they once judged? Yeah, Contradictions, 23 years old. So this book is older than my youngest child and whoa. Yeah, younger than Hallie. And then Amber's got a couple years on it, not too much, but I don't want to, have you all thinking that she's an old lady because I'm certainly not. All right. So I want to read to you all a little bit from Contradictions. But before, let me look at the chat. Nobody wants to make that self reflection. So true. So true. That is very true. It's a hard one, too. All right. So I'm going to read to you all a little bit, not a whole lot, because I really cannot stand for somebody to read to me, but just a little bit from Contradictions, just enough to give you a little insight into who Aris is. And then later on, no, I'll say that. I'm not going to even tell you later on what we're going to do. I'll say that. Okay, here we go. Frustrated with herself, she found herself thinking, I keep getting involved with the same type of guy. What is that about? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is insanity. There's a type of guy I don't like, yet I keep ending up with that type. That's insanity. 3 years. The statute of limitations for tolerating Sean Parker's nonsense had expired. Aris was surprised that she let it drag on this far, but today was different. She was finally doing it, leaving him for good. Sean was out of town working as a water blaster, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. She needed to move quickly. The weight of her decision pressed down on her chest, but she couldn't let it paralyze her. I can't be here when he gets back, Aris whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Last time, it didn't end well. The memory of that night still haunted her. Sean's explosive reaction, the shouting, the threats. She blinked hard, pushing back the tears. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't just afraid of another confrontation. She feared what would happen if she stayed. She wasn't about to break the promise she made to herself. Not again. Iris shivered as the memory replayed in her mind. Sean had been out of control, more unpredictable than she ever imagined. And she knew, deep down, this time, she couldn't let him talk her out of leaving. She had to be gone before he even had the chance. So, this is a little bit about Aris in Contradictions. This is probably, these pages are numbered differently, but this is probably the third, no, this is page 8 of the book. So early on in the book, you see her dilemma and where she's at. Now, I know some of you may be listening to this dilemma that Aris is going through, and you may want to say, oh, she is so weak. But Aris is not weak. She's not weak. And so I tell you to get the book and read. She's not clueless. What Aris is right now is she's evolving, and she's doing that in real time. And sometimes evolution doesn't look pretty. It looks like contradiction. Aris is smart, but she's emotionally conflicted. She's aware, but she keeps choosing wrong. And she's hurt. She is hurt. And even though she's hurt, she's still attached. Now, I want to take a break here and move over into another one of my companies, which is Nicole Bradley Candle Co., and let you know that my characters have their own signature fragrances at Nicole Bradley Candle Co. And so Aris, her signature fragrance is called The Beautiful Disruption. And I will put it in the chat. I will put the website in the chat where you can purchase her fragrance. But it is called The Beautiful Disruption. And so now I have another question for you all. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do you think that Aris knows better, or is she still learning? So, do you think she knows better, or is she still learning? And is awareness enough to change behavior? Let me know what you think in the chat. I am going to put the website where you can look at Aris's fragrance as well as the other fragrance lineups. Let's see. Okay. So Jen says, still learning. Matters of the heart are different from matters of the head. So true. So true. Yeah. And so when you read Aris's story in Contradictions, and then you see her again in My Love Won't Last Forever, Book 2, Chaotic Bliss, Aris is a totally different woman in that book. And so Aris is part of our fragrance collection. She's part of the villain collection. So when you see her here in Contradictions, I'm not sure how you all might look at her, but because of who she evolves into, she is one of our villains. Oh, so I was reading Jen's comment. Why do foes fall in love with? And I think it got cut off. But I'll come back and pick up on it. So now I want to talk about Aris because you see her in chaos here in the beginning of Contradictions. But I want to talk about her because she does have a transformation. She does begin to shift. And so her transformation happens. It does happen. And so a lot of times when transformations happen and those shifts happen, they're not necessarily loud. Eris's is not a loud, traumatic transformation. It's quiet. And hers comes, as does many of our transformation, come when we stop resisting something and start accepting it. Small compromises, justifications, emotional fatigue, settling into patterns. I dare ask this question, and it's a fun question, kind of. I think after you evolve, it becomes a fun question. When you're going through it, maybe not. But, anyways, I think it's a fun question to ask, not to experience necessarily, but to ask. What's more dangerous? Is it the first bad decision or the second one? What would you say is more dangerous? And then I like to ask, have you ever justified something you said you'd never tolerate? So, have you ever found yourself tolerating something that you said you never would, but because you are doing it, now you're justifying that? Yeah, I know this is not our previous episodes. This one I did say would be kind of the Cinderella. The shoe might feel a little tight. The second decision is more dangerous because you should have learned your lesson the second time around. Yeah, it could be. It could build off that first bad decision and keep escalating and snowballing into something. Yeah. Oh, now I want to talk about pattern versus personality. And I know some of you all are probably not going to really like this, but there are some things that we sometimes classify and call personality. And in reality, it's pattern, it's not personality. So, what do I mean by that? Sometimes these things are trauma responses and they're disguised as choices. Familiar chaos that feels like comfort, repetition without awareness, and So then we have to ask ourselves, are we choosing something or are we repeating a pattern? And sometimes that becomes difficult. And you have to sit with yourself and say, hey, am I choosing this or am I repeating a pattern? And then this one, oh, I love this question because I ask myself these questions often. How many of your decisions are actually yours? How many of your decisions are actually yours? And your answer could look like a variety of things, and there's no judgment, but how many of those decisions are actually yours? And so then Jan said, a lot of times we are choosing a pattern and we are so used to the chaos. Yeah, I absolutely agree, which is why there's that book too in the My Love Won't Last Forever series called Chaotic Bliss. And sometimes people become comfortable in chaos, they become comfortable with dysfunction. And so, even though it's chaotic, it's not ideal situations, they find some type of bliss there. And so, that is one of the reasons why I named that book Chaotic Bliss. And there are a lot of people, if you look around in the world today, that are very happy in their chaos. Now, I know last week we talked about Margo, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Margo this week, but I want to, I'm not going to too much get into Margo as being Nyrie's mother, but Margo as the woman, Margo, is who I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about Margo. She's also in the fragrance collection as a villain, and her fragrance is Good Gyrl Energy. I, yep, I see it here. I have a note. You can enter a drawing to win Aris's fragrance or Margo's fragrance by going to www.nicolebradleycandles.com and signing up to be on the email list. And so your sign up will get you entered into a drawing for Aris's fragrance as well as Margo's fragrance. Margo's fragrance is called Good Gyrl Energy based on Carolina Herrera's fragrance. And Aris is Beautiful Disruption, which is based on Delina fragrance. So let's get into Aris versus Margo, both villains. And so let me say something, or rather, let me show you something that's powerful about these women. Let's look at Margo first. Margo is controlled. Margo is intentional. Margo is strategic. Aris, on the other hand, is still becoming. Margo is who you become when you master your pain. Aris is who you are when you're still in it. Now, I know I read to you a little bit from Chaotic Bliss. And so I just want to read a little of Margo's story to you from the standalone book, She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. And that is an ebook that is available on Amazon, and it is also available on ebook platforms. And I'll put the title of the book in the chat as well. But here we go. Here's a little snippet from She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. Margot's fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass, not enough for anyone to notice, but enough for her to feel the pressure building in her chest. She knew it in her bones, in her gut, in that deep primal place where a mother's intuition doesn't play games. She wasn't exaggerating about Malachi, not one damn bit. Every word she dropped about their son in law was straight facts. If anything, she'd been holding back. But Edwin's sharp ass redirect, his suggestion that she stop speaking on Malachi Chandler, hung heavy in the air between them, like that expensive Isiniaki some bougie sister was wearing 3 tables over. Margo pulled in a breath, slow and deep, held it for 4 counts, then let it sleep out just as slowly. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. One of her go-to techniques when she felt herself about to lose it, about to reach across this table and remind Edwin who the hell she was. She didn't respond, though. Not right away. Edwin is really getting beside himself right now. Lucky for him, the mayor was posted up 2 sections over with the whole table of city council members and state reps. Really lucky. Because if they weren't sitting in this overpriced waterfront spot with all these important folk watching, she would have been told her husband exactly where he could take that last comment. Instead, Margo took a slow, deliberate sip of her Chardonnay, the kind of sip that said everything without saying a thing, and turned her gaze to the darkening water outside. Her silence stretched out between them, thick and loaded, saying all the words her carefully controlled mouth wouldn't let loose. Not yet, anyway. So that's Margo from She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. I'm going to put that in the chat before we move on to our next topic. Okay. But before we move on, let me ask you all, and you can put it in the chat. Which one are you right now? Are you Aris or are you Margo? Which one are you? Are you Aris or are you Margo? And then my other question is it possible to skip the Aris phase of life, or does everyone have to go through an Aris phase? So 2 questions. Who are you right now? Are you Aris or are you Margo? And the other question is it possible to skip the Aris phase in life and straight go on to the other things in life? Or does everyone have to experience an Aris phase? And Jen said that she is in her Margo phase. Yeah, Margo is for real grown. Aris is kind of just getting started grown. Now, I know a lot of times when we look at characters like Aris, we wanna blame the men. You know, we wanna blame men, and tonight that's not what this is about. So let's be clear. Tonight is not about blaming men. This is about the ladies tonight. And so I'll go into that in a second. Why this is more about the ladies. I mean, we could look at the male aspect, but tonight we're going to look at ladies. Let's see. So Jen says, if possible, to skip the Aris phase, especially when you have a mother like Margo. Yeah. And it's interesting because Aris is Nyrie's best friend, and she was also brought up around Margo. And Margo would have been an influence in younger Aris's life. But yeah, so I said we're not going to blame the men. We're going to look at the ladies. And so one of the things that we got to look at when we're talking about Aris, because I'm coming back to Aris right now, is ignoring red flags. Um, there were red flags, of course, that Aris saw, and in that section that I read to you, excuse me, she even says, 3 years, finally, she's doing it. So this went on for 3 years. She's clear on the red flags. In that same section, it becomes more graphic and detailed about some of the things that she's endured in her relationship with Sean. But I didn't want to get too nitty gritty in it. One of the other things that we have to look at is, and it happens, romanticizing dysfunction. And we're not judging Iris, but even out of her own thought process, where we see her at in the beginning of Contradictions, she even admittedly says that she she stayed when she should have left. There had been times before where she was going to leave and she allowed Sean to talk her into staying. And so in this moment, when we see Errors and Contradictions getting ready to leave, she's on a time clock. She knows that she's got to hurry up and do it. She has to leave while he's still out of town and he's not at home, because she doesn't trust herself to be around him and to stick to what she said. And she says this time she's not going to break her promise to herself. And so the only way she can keep her promise is she's on this time clock. She's got to move, and she's got to move fast while he's not there, because there's that element that she could be talked out of what she's established for herself. And now I want to talk about another thing that happens with Eris. And I don't want to give away her backstory, but there is a little backstory that she has. And she shares it in the book. So when you read Contradictions, you'll see this. But I want you to sit with this. At what point does survival turn into becoming the very thing you hated? And so Eris has this moment in the book where she's had what she thought would be her ideal life mapped out. She's had the don't list established, the things she doesn't want to do, the type of person she doesn't want to become. And there's a person that she attaches to the person she does not want to become. And before she knows it, she's become said person. And so my question is, like, at what point does survival turn into becoming the very thing you hated, the thing you said you were not going to become? And then I know I want to jump back up to the segment just a few minutes ago that we were talking about, and I said we were not going to blame the guys. And so when we look at Aris, when we meet Aris in the story, is staying a choice a habit? Is it a choice or is it a habit? So if we just identify her situation with Sean, which we know is chaotic and dysfunctional, was her staying a choice or was it a habit? And I'd just be interested to know what you all think about her choice of staying, because she did stay such a long time. I think it's a habit. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. We talked about patterns, and so she did have this had become a pattern between her and Sean. When she gets ready to go, then he knows how to say the things for her to stay, and so it becomes a habit. And so when this day she's making a choice to leave, and she's breaking the habit. Sometimes we constantly, when you give people chance after chance, yeah, yeah, you know, she was guilty of that, giving him chance after chance and falling into that pattern. And so I did say that Aries becomes like this person whom she said that she wouldn't become. And so, have you ever seen yourself in someone you don't like? So for Eris, this person is her mother, that she said that she would not repeat the things that her mother has done in life. And here it is in the book. As much as she tried to avoid it, she's seeing this mother that she does not have a relationship with, a connection. She's seeing herself do the same things that her mother did. You said, I think Eris might be a people pleaser. You got to read Contradictions and see her in Chaotic Bliss. And I think you will see her to be an interesting character for sure. So we're going to wrap up this segment. I want to thank you all for being here this evening with us talking about Aris and Margo. We talked about love in our past episodes. We've talked about marriage. We've talked about power. But tonight, we talked about identity. Because the real question is not who hurt you, it's who you become because of it. And as we wrap up the show, just let me know, are you evolving or repeating? And if this episode hits you in any kind of way, please do share it with someone who needs to hear this conversation. And again, we're not judging anybody at all. It's our goal to help people. Sometimes they don't see the pattern, they're not aware. And so next week, We will not have an episode on next week, but we will come back on the second Thursday of April, and we will be talking about chaotic bliss, when everything looks good but nothing is right. Chaotic bliss reads like a soap opera. So on the second Thursday in April, we will be discussing chaotic bliss, and then after that, the third Thursday, we will be discussing the ebook that will have been released on April 12th, called My Love Won't Last Forever, Book 3, His Wife. So the rewrite will be available then, and then on that third Thursday in April, we will be talking about the ebook, and hopefully you all will have read the ebook by then. We will be talking about our faves, Nairi, Malachi, and Ivan, but we will be looking at them in the ebook, the new book that's going to release April the 12th. So enjoy your weekend. Happy Easter, because I won't talk to you next week. Happy Easter. Enjoy your Easter holiday, your family, friends, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks, and we will be talking about chaotic bliss. So, have a good night, and we will talk soon. Bye.